So what's all the fuss about the Postal Service and mail-in voting? Is the election going to be at risk if the Postal Service doesn't get money soon? This is Thursday's Child. I'm your host, Keisha Toni, a former teacher turned constitutional lawyer, here to bring you your weekly lesson on the law. So let's get started. Because of COVID-19, more Americans are expected to vote by mail than usual in the 2020 presidential election this November. The Postal Service is essential, and according to its website, the Postal Service has so far experienced only minor operational impacts in the United States as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Recently, the media reported that the Postal Service wrote letters to dozens of states, warning those states that their deadlines for requesting and casting mail-in ballots are incongruous with the Postal Service's delivery standards. The Postal Service said it's only asking election officials and voters to realistically consider how the mail works. For example, in Michigan, requests to have an absentee voter ballot mailed to you must be received by the state no later than 5 p.m. the Friday before the election. That's a mere 4 days, including a Sunday, before the voting. So if you file a request on Friday, October 30th, how realistic is it to expect that the ballot can be processed, mailed, voted, and return mailed all by Tuesday, November 3rd? In response, some states are considering whether to adjust those dates or accept ballots as long as they are postmarked by November 3rd. This year, the flood of mailed ballots has caused longer counting periods in some states. It took a week or more to declare the winner in some closely watched races during the primaries in Kentucky and New York. But the Postal Service insists it has ample capacity to deliver all ballots securely and on time during the upcoming election. But what about the Postal Service's financial position? President Trump reportedly said that he was blocking additional funding for the Postal Service because he opposes universal mail-in voting. President Trump has said that universal mail-in voting would invite fraud and errors, but researchers haven't found evidence of widespread fraud, although some isolated cases have been linked to mailed ballots. The Postal Service is an independent agency that doesn't receive annual taxpayer money, but instead gets minimal services reimbursed by Congress. But it's primarily funded by the post sales and other services that it provides. Now, the Postal Service has financially struggled for many years because of a combination of reduced first-class mail and a law that requires it to pre-fund employee pensions and retirement healthcare costs. The Postal Service has defaulted on those payments and owes more than $50 billion. President Trump constantly criticizes the Postal Service's financial position. He says it charges too little to deliver packages sent by retailers like Amazon. But at the same time, the Postal Service said in financial reports that it can fund operations through at least August 2021. And the Postal Service has publicly said its financial condition won't affect its ability to process and deliver mail on Election Day. So you may have also heard that the Postal Service is making changes to its mailing processes, and some Democrats were concerned that these changes would negatively impact mail-in voting. But the Postal Service said these changes were announced earlier this year and should be no surprise. However, to squelch concern, the Postal Service agreed to delay those changes until after the election. So what's most important for you in this story is to understand how to make sure your ballots are counted. This is the time to start checking your state's laws on voting. 5 states, Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, Washington, and Utah, routinely conduct all mail-in elections. But in response to the pandemic, California, Nevada, New Jersey, and Vermont, and D.C. have pledged to mail out ballots to all registered voters for the November election. Now, other states require voters to request a mail-in ballot, and an even smaller number of states requires voters to need a specific reason to vote absentee, such as being out of town. But the Postal Service has publicly recommended that voters mail back their ballot at least a week before the state's deadline. Depending upon where you live, you might even be able to drop off that ballot at a secure drop box. So take the time to check these laws. Of course, if you're comfortable, you can still vote in person, and that guarantees that your vote is counted. Overall, despite the kerfuffle in the media about mail-in ballots, the Postal Service will probably be just fine. Just focus on doing your part, and that is to vote. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for watching Thursday's Child. I'm Keisha Toni, and I'll see you next time.